Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Spotlight Murders. I'm your host, Kieran Caldwell, and tonight we're diving deep into one of the most shocking celebrity murders of the 1990s. The assassination of fashion legend Gianni Versace. This isn't just a story about a famous designer's tragic end. It's a tale of deception, double lives, family secrets, and a manhunt that captivated an entire nation. On the morning of July 15, 1997, the fashion world lost one of its most brilliant minds when Gianni Versace was gunned down on the steps of his Miami Beach mansion. But the story begins long before that fatal morning, in the twisted mind of Andrew Cunanan, a young man living a dangerous double life. Craving a true crime podcast that dives deep into the darkest corners of fame and murder? Scoob is your go-to AI-powered podcast, unraveling the twisted minds of killers and the chilling truths behind infamous celebrity murder cases. From the assassination of John Lennon to the unsolved mystery of Tupac Shakur and the brutal Tate LaBianca murders, Scoob delivers binge-worthy, in-depth episodes that keep you hooked from start to finish. Join thousands of true crime fans across the U.S. who are already obsessed. Download Scoob now on the App Store or Google Play. And don't forget to follow and subscribe to Spotlight Murders for fresh episodes uncovering the untold stories and hidden sides of your favorite celebrities. Returning to the case of Gianni Versace's murder, let's first understand his killer, Andrew Cunanan. Cunanan was a master of reinvention. By day, he lived as a struggling student in the modest suburb of Rancho Bernardo, California, where neighbors knew him as an impoverished young man who could barely afford his education. His neighbor, Hal Melowitz, a psychiatric social worker who had befriended Andrew's fragile mother, Mary Ann, watched this daily performance with growing concern. Mary Ann Cunanan was a woman drowning in her own mental anguish. She had endured multiple nervous breakdowns, the first occurring at age 33 after a violent incident where her husband broke a chair over her back. Under psychiatric care, she was a habitual chain smoker who talked non-stop and frequently threatened to end her own life. And Andrew? He showed little concern for her suffering. The relationship between mother and son was disturbing and violent. Andrew had explicitly forbidden his mother from entering the local thrifty drugstore, resorting to explosive outbursts if she dared defy him. In 1993, during one particularly violent episode, Andrew lost complete control and shoved his mother against a wall with such brutal force that it fractured her shoulder. When she sought medical help at the emergency room, Andrew delivered a chilling warning. Reveal the truth to anyone, and there would be dire consequences. Even their parish priest, Father Émile Vive Bourgeois, was deeply disturbed by Andrew's behavior, attributing it to drug influence, because surely no son should act so aggressively toward his own mother. Despite the abuse, Mary Ann remained unwaveringly devoted to Andrew. She would remove the phone from its hook to ensure his afternoon sleep remained undisturbed, speak only in whispers throughout the house, and stretch her limited finances to provide whatever meals Andrew desired. If Andrew wanted steak, Mary Ann would find a way to buy it, even if it meant she had only a few dollars left to her name. Melowitz observed how Mary Ann smothered Andrew with attention, reducing him to a childlike state where he remained the center of her universe. It was an unhealthy dynamic that would take extreme measures to break. But when night fell, Andrew Cunanan underwent a complete transformation. As darkness descended over Southern California, the struggling student from Rancho Bernardo would climb into his inconspicuous old LTD and drive south along Interstate 15 toward the vibrant nightlife of Hillcrest. There, Andrew Cunanan ceased to exist, replaced by the sophisticated persona of Andrew De Silva, a charismatic, Yale-educated socialite who boasted of immense wealth. This nighttime Andrew claimed ties to lucrative investments, parking lots, car dealerships, sugar plantations, New York real estate, even a mattress distribution warehouse. He was a lavish spender who moved through exclusive social circles with the confidence of old money. As Melowitz put it, Andrew was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, leading a double life marked by stark contrasts between his daytime desperation and his evening extravagance. This ability to completely reinvent himself, to slip between identities like changing clothes, would prove to be both his greatest talent and his most dangerous weapon. But by 1997, this carefully constructed fantasy was beginning to crumble. The pressure of maintaining multiple false identities, combined with his deteriorating mental state, was pushing Andrew toward a breaking point that would have catastrophic consequences. 2 months before Gianni Versace would take his final walk to the news cafe in Miami Beach, Andrew Cunanan had already claimed another victim, Lee Miglin, an influential American entrepreneur and philanthropist. The brutal murder had thrust Cunanan into the national spotlight as one of America's most wanted fugitives. The manhunt intensified dramatically on Friday, May 8, 1997. At 1:30 p.m. and again at 3 p.m. on Thursday, Ameritech Cellular's communication tower had detected activity on Lee Miglin's stolen Lexus phone, placing the signal within the Philadelphia area. The FBI and Chicago police were immediately notified, and the race was on. Friday morning brought a critical development when the Chicago Tribune published an explosive article. Journalist Andrew Martin, citing leaks from Chicago law enforcement, reported that Andrew had used the cell phone, allowing authorities to track his location. However, chaos ensued when Chicago police simultaneously denied this claim to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, insisting that Andrew had not accessed Miglin's cellular device. Despite the conflicting reports, Philadelphia police confirmed they were broadcasting descriptions and license plate details of Miglin's vehicle. Updates were shared hourly across multiple police units throughout the city of brotherly love. FBI agent Linda Vizzi described their protocol. Be on the lookout. Warnings were issued to officers using standard radio channels that lacked secure encryption. This allowed media outlets to monitor police communications, though immediate action didn't follow. The situation became even more puzzling when investigators discovered a movie ticket stub for The Devil's Own, indicating Andrew had visited a New York theater on Thursday night. If the Philadelphia cell phone tracking was accurate, it suggested an erratic travel pattern. Andrew had somehow managed to travel from New York to Philadelphia and then back toward New York again, a journey requiring approximately 90 minutes each direction. Where Andrew spent that Friday remained largely unknown, but what investigators did know was disturbing. He had purchased the New York Times, the Philadelphia Inquirer, and USA Today. Of these publications, only the Times contained a brief mention of his crimes. He was reading about himself, tracking his own manhunt. Thursday night had seen Chicago network affiliates broadcasting an all-points bulletin for Andrew, reportedly in the Philadelphia area. Other media sources quickly picked up this information, with Philadelphia police confirming the use of Miglin's phone. Before and after official validation, news outlets throughout Philadelphia, especially all news radio stations, spread alerts about the stolen car phone incident. In Minneapolis, Sergeant Todd Rivard received a highly confidential call that same Friday from Lee Ernest, who was leading the investigation into Cunanan's activities. Ernest delivered critical guidance with strict instructions. Don't tell your wife. Don't share with anyone. We got him on the hook. At that moment, Ernest believed they were close to capturing their target. He remained unaware that information about their investigation was already leaking to the media, potentially compromising their ability to apprehend one of America's most dangerous fugitives. The net was closing, but Andrew Cunanan was still one step ahead. July 15, 1997, began like any other morning in Miami Beach. Gianni Versace, the legendary fashion designer who had dressed everyone from Princess Diana to Madonna, left his opulent Ocean Drive mansion for his regular morning walk to the news cafe. It was a routine he had established, a simple pleasure in an otherwise complex life. But Andrew Cunanan was waiting. At precisely 9:21 a.m., Gianni Versace was pronounced dead at the Ryder Trauma Center within Jackson Memorial Hospital. Detective Gus Sanchez, responsible for hospital duties, was tasked with retrieving Versace's personal belongings. Among these items were $1,173.63 in cash and a small religious picture depicting the Virgin of Medjugorje. Ironic, considering that in previous interviews, Versace had dismissed the significance of organized religion. Despite Versace's previous statements about faith, his family requested that a priest administer last rites. When Sanchez accompanied the priest into Versace's room, he made a disturbing discovery. Versace's t-shirt had mysteriously disappeared. Later, unconfirmed rumors suggested that Versace's X-rays had also gone missing, leading Sanchez to wonder if unscrupulous individuals were already taking advantage of the tragedy. A nurse suggested the t-shirt might have been accidentally discarded in the emergency room, but the explanation felt inadequate. The critical first hour following the murder provided the best opportunity to capture the killer, but fate intervened in the form of an unrelated incident that diverted crucial resources. Near the parking garage where the shooter had fled, initial reports about the perpetrator were frustratingly vague. Witnesses couldn't agree whether the shooter was black, white, or brown. A rookie police officer spotted a dark-skinned individual he recognized from a previous confrontation. This man, recently released on probation and found with drugs, panicked when he saw police and began fleeing down Espanola Way. His flight triggered an immediate response. Several officers veered away from the main search area to pursue him, drawing them several blocks away from where the real killer had escaped. The rookie officer called for backup over the radio, pulling even more police to the false chase. After apprehending the suspect, authorities quickly released him without charges when they realized he had no connection to Versace's murder. During this critical diversion, investigative leader Paul Scrimshaw noted that Andrew Cunanan could have easily walked unnoticed up Collins Avenue, disappearing into the Miami Beach crowds. Meanwhile, the crime scene at Versace's mansion descended into chaos. The designer's fame attracted an unprecedented number of law enforcement officials, including state attorneys who rarely appeared at crime scenes, but were now being photographed by media as they examined the area. The law enforcement community was divided over whether this was a targeted assassination or a random crime, though many officers leaned toward the theory of a professional hit. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement began processing the scene and conducting forensic analyses while additional FBI agents arrived, further crowding the investigation. According to Marcus, one of the lead investigators, there were upwards of 50 investigators present locally, including agents patrolling Ocean Drive and surrounding alleyways. In those chaotic initial hours, the dining room at the front of Versace's mansion was transformed into a makeshift command center for police operations. This decision deeply disturbed the household members, who were already overwhelmed with shock and grief. Antonio D'Amico, Versace's longtime partner, was particularly devastated and opposed the idea of their home being used as a police headquarters. D'Amico was desperate to reach the hospital, but authorities informed him that Gianni had already passed away. Marcus advised Antonio that there was nothing he could do at the hospital and emphasized his importance to the investigation. Nevertheless, Antonio was determined to be where his partner had been taken, compelling authorities to clear police vehicles and remove barriers to facilitate his departure. The morning that began with a simple walk to a cafe had transformed into a media circus, a massive manhunt, and the beginning of a mystery that would captivate the world. Curious about the final hours before the celebrity world changed forever? Scoob goes beyond the headlines to uncover the chilling details behind history's most shocking celebrity murders. From strange encounters to overlooked clues, each episode reveals the hidden moments that led to the most infamous killings of public figures like John Lennon, Tupac Shakur, Bob Crane, and more. Fast-paced, expertly researched, and impossible to pause, Scoob brings you the stories others only skim. Join over 50,000 true crime fans who understand. It's not just what happened, it's how it happened. Download Scoob today on the App Store or Google Play. The truth is never as simple as it seems, and as the investigation into Gianni Versace's murder intensified, theories began emerging about the killer's motive. The most persistent and controversial theory centered around HIV/AIDS transmission. Jerry Scrimshaw, a private investigator working the case, developed a theory that Gianni Versace might have transmitted AIDS to Andrew Cunanan, providing a motive for murder. Scrimshaw believed that testing the viral DNA on both Versace's and Cunanan's clothing could provide crucial evidence. His plan was scientifically sound, but legally complex. If both men's clothes showed identical viral DNA, it would conclusively link one as the source of the other's infection. However, Scrimshaw faced significant obstacles. While Florida authorities knew Versace's HIV status from the autopsy, state laws governing confidentiality around viral DNA structure were stringent. Even in a high-profile murder investigation, these results remained sealed. A public statement from the medical examiner did confirm one crucial fact: Andrew Cunanan was HIV negative. This revelation immediately cast doubt on the transmission theory, but it didn't stop the speculation. On the federal level, the FBI faced fewer restrictions concerning viral DNA testing. They had developed a strategy to obtain viral DNA from clothing, believing this could reveal the origin of any HIV strain if present. Scrimshaw discovered through autopsy findings that Versace was indeed HIV positive, which shed light on why the Versace family was pushing for early cremation and their swift departure from the country. The HIV theory gained traction when Maureen Orth, in her book about Cunanan, cited a Miami Beach police officer claiming the autopsy indicated Versace was HIV positive. The Versace family fought back against these claims, releasing a letter from Gianni's doctor in Milan affirming his negative status. Antonio D'Amico also vehemently denied the allegations about the virus. But the HIV theory wasn't the only conspiracy gaining attention. Enter Antonio Monte, a figure who would introduce even more bizarre theories into the investigation. Monte suggested that Versace's life was in jeopardy due to a former employee known as Guglielmo Gatturini, or Johnny the Cat, who allegedly possessed company records that could incriminate the Versace family in a money laundering scheme tied to the Calabrian mafia. According to Monte's outlandish claims, Gatturini was extorting money from Gianni in exchange for these damaging documents. Monte went further, suggesting that Versace's siblings might have been complicit in the murder. In his most absurd allegation, he claimed that Andrew Cunanan was already dead before Versace's murder, his body supposedly frozen and strategically placed on a houseboat to create a misleading narrative. Though Monte's claims lacked any credibility, they captivated media outlets eager for sensational elements in the Miami murder saga. Monte quickly capitalized on this attention, securing deals for books and films that further fueled the controversy. The investigation became even more complicated when police examined the houseboat where Cunanan's body would eventually be found. They discovered dubious documentation, including a fake driver's license and passport under the alias Matthias Ruhl, linked to the tiny island of Sealand near Britain. Wolfgang Reineck, another shadowy figure connected to the boat, was wanted in Germany for tax fraud. Reineck quickly distanced himself from the houseboat, claiming it had been sold weeks earlier to the mysterious Matthias Ruhl. With both Reineck and Ruhl fleeing to Germany, authorities probed deeper into their possible connections to Cunanan. Enrico Forti appeared during this period, claiming to be the legitimate owner of the houseboat and presenting supporting documentation. Vague reports emerged, alleging Cunanan had visited a Las Vegas gay bathhouse owned by Reineck, though this connection was never conclusively proven. Forti himself would later face charges and ultimately be convicted of murder in Spain. Despite exhaustive efforts, including over 1,000 interviews, investigators never established any tangible connection between Cunanan and Versace, or between Cunanan and the alleged houseboat proprietors. The conspiracy theories, while captivating, remained just that, theories without evidence. While investigators chased theories and conspiracies, the Versace family faced their own private hell. The immediate aftermath of Gianni's murder revealed not just grief, but complex family dynamics that would shape how they handled both the tragedy and its aftermath. Antonio D'Amico, who had been Gianni Versace's devoted partner for 15 years, found himself in an impossibly difficult position. Gianni, in his generosity, had ensured Antonio would be well cared for, granting him use of luxurious homes and providing a monthly allowance to maintain a comfortable lifestyle. However, Gianni's death meant the loss of a protective buffer against the animosity of Gianni's sister, Donatella. Donatella's cold demeanor toward Antonio became immediately apparent. Her curt departure from the hospital was a stark reminder of her feelings toward him. In the aftermath of Gianni's death, Donatella distanced herself from Antonio, leaving him with the oppressive feeling that the Versace family somehow held him accountable for Gianni's tragic end. Despite having shared countless holidays, milestones, and cherished moments with the Versace family over 15 years, Antonio realized that his connection to this world had come to an abrupt and disheartening end. His fears were confirmed when Santo, Gianni's brother, tersely advised Antonio to consult a lawyer, a clear signal of his impending exclusion from the family fold. The family's approach to handling Gianni's death was carefully orchestrated. They consistently denied any connection between Gianni and Andrew Cunanan, with Donatella firmly stating that her brother had never met his killer. After the tragedy, the family chose not to delve deeper into the police investigation, perhaps understanding that some truths were better left unexplored. Ironically, the brand's sales saw a significant surge following the murder, partially achieving Gianni's dream of making the Versace name universally recognized, though not in the way he had envisioned. In a December 1998 interview on Dateline with Katie Couric, Donatella expressed her frustration toward those who had failed to capture Cunanan before her brother's death. She also revealed a heartbreaking detail. Gianni had been declared free of his inoperable ear cancer just 6 months before he was killed. He had beaten one death sentence, only to face another. Gianni's will revealed his thoughtful planning for his family's future. His 11-year-old niece, Allegra Versace, would inherit a 45% share of Versace Spie, while her brother Daniel would receive Gianni's extensive art collection. Both Donatella and Santo already owned considerable shares in the company before Gianni's death. Antonio D'Amico was granted a lifelong, inflation-adjusted monthly allowance of approximately $30,000 and the option to reside in any Versace residence worldwide. Despite this generous provision, Antonio told a Canadian newspaper he intended never to return to those homes, citing the emotional pain it would bring. Eventually, Donatella and Santo reached an agreement with Antonio, providing him with a lump sum in exchange for his monthly payments. Antonio returned to Florence, Italy, to establish his own design firm, finally free to build a life separate from the Versace legacy. The Versace family was determined to control their narrative, focusing on themes of resilience and triumph, particularly for Donatella in her new role as the creative force behind the House of Versace. They worked tirelessly to elevate Gianni's stature in fashion history, investing heavily in a comprehensive retrospective of his designs at the Costume Institute of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. In early September 1997, under gloomy afternoon skies, a procession of celebrities, most donning Versace's elegant designs, climbed the sweeping marble steps of New York's Metropolitan Museum of Art. Museum staff had installed an extensive white awning with side panels over the staircase, providing protection for distinguished guests from the throng of reporters and photographers gathered along Fifth Avenue. With Princess Diana's recent death fresh in the public mind, the relentless pursuit of celebrities by paparazzi had become a pressing concern, leading to heightened security measures involving New York City police officers managing the crowd. Inside the museum's Temple of Dendur, a vast, glass-encased atrium favored for prestigious events. Gianni Versace's memorial service unfolded. Robert Isabel, Manhattan's esteemed party planner, had transformed the venue with a lavish display of white blossoms. Officially, Versace's PR team announced this would remain a private affair, restricted to family and close friends, and strictly off-limits to media intrusion. However, privacy was somewhat foreign to the Versace ethos. In a strategic move, Donatella's PR executive allowed access to a journalist from Condé Nast's Women's Wear Daily, ensuring favorable coverage of the gathering and documentation of the illustrious attendees. Whitney Houston, John Bon Jovi, Ralph Lauren, Tom Ford, Donald Trump, Courtney Love, and Woody Allen. Throughout the service, noted personalities took the podium to commemorate Gianni. Madonna delivered a poignant poem she had written for the occasion. Anna Wintour, typically known for her stoic demeanor, became visibly emotional as she reminisced about the meticulous feedback Gianni would send regarding each issue of Vogue. "It's hard for me to believe that I'll never talk to him on the phone again," lamented Elton John, who then performed Live Like Horses, a song cherished by Gianni. Donatella eventually rose to speak, marking her first public appearance since the funeral in Milan and symbolizing her ascension as the new face of Versace. Her short speech was a heartfelt tribute that resonated deeply with attendees, bringing many to tears. Speaking with a nervous tremble in her thick Italian accent, she recalled how Gianni would set overwhelming tasks before her, and she would protest her inability to accomplish them, only for Gianni to respond with unwavering encouragement. "He was always the most exciting person I knew," she concluded with affection. "He was my best friend." The Met exhibition, sponsored by Vogue magazine, debuted with a glittering gala in December 1997 that attracted celebrities including Madonna, Sting, Cher, and Elton John. Madonna, wearing a Versace ensemble reminiscent of a sari, made a playful comment about Donatella slipping diamonds into her pockets, leaving attendees wondering whether it signified genuine friendship or savvy marketing tactics. The main promotional image for the exhibition was a grand monochrome photograph of an 18th century-style dress designed for the San Francisco Opera's production of Capriccio. Gossip circulated that the museum was nervous during the exhibition's preparation, wary of past controversies tarnishing its prestigious reputation. Throughout these events, the Versaces remained vigilant in protecting their brand, legally challenging any implications of connections to organized crime. They successfully secured 2 libel victories in England after Gianni's death, effectively silencing inaccurate reporting about alleged criminal connections. The family had transformed tragedy into triumph, ensuring that Gianni Versace would be remembered not as a murder victim, but as a fashion legend whose legacy would endure. While the Versace family orchestrated their public response to tragedy, law enforcement continued their relentless pursuit of Andrew Cunanan. The manhunt had become a national obsession, with every reported sighting generating headlines and false hopes. By late July 1997, the pressure on authorities was immense. Facing mounting criticism for their perceived mishandling of the hunt for Cunanan, the FBI and local police were desperate to bring the case to a close. Then came the night that would end it all. Tom Dorr, a detective with the Miami Beach Police Department, would later recall the chaotic atmosphere when initial reports suggested Andrew Cunanan's body had not been found on a houseboat as expected. The community had fallen into a frenzy, with everyone suspecting Cunanan was hiding behind every corner, leading to intense but irrational vigilance that disrupted daily life and created unnecessary stress. The night of the discovery was marked by competitive journalism and confusion. By 9:15 p.m., Channel 10 had dropped the story, believing it was a false lead. Detective Doerr decided to distance himself from the chaos by driving to Coral Gables. Meanwhile, WTVJ Channel 6, known for its spirited competition with Channel 10, remained at the scene. Their persistence would soon pay off. By 9:25 p.m., WTVJ received a tip suggesting that Cunanan's body might indeed have been discovered. Reporter Robin Kish had inside information confirming the crucial details. There was a body. The death appeared self-inflicted, and it looked to be Cunanan. However, more evidence was needed to substantiate these claims. Another reporter, Mike Williams, posed similar questions to his sources and received encouragement on his work, though not explicit confirmation. By 9:45 p.m., doubt still lingered in the newsroom. The breakthrough came at 10:19 p.m. when network newsman Pete Williams broke the news on CNBC and MSNBC from Washington, sharing federal sources' confirmation of a body found on the houseboat. Shortly after, Mike Williams managed to contact his local informant again and received direct confirmation. This source provided a chilling detail. Andrew had used the same gun in his suicide that had been used in Gianni Versace's murder. At 10:24 p.m., WTVJ became the first to report the finding of a body, presumably Cunanan's, pending fingerprint verification, announcing it appeared to be suicide. Despite the news spreading through media channels, officials in Miami Beach sought to formally present the facts to reporters gathered in front of the houseboat. FBI Representative Paul Phillip made an appearance dressed in formal attire, having been summoned from a prestigious dinner event. Mayor Alex Pinellas of Dade County arrived via helicopter, demonstrating his engagement with the developments. However, Seymour Gelber, the mayor of Miami Beach, chose to remain at home while handling numerous press inquiries. He had been notified around 9 p.m. by the city manager about Cunanan's identity. When approached by reporters facing pressing deadlines, Gelber expressed his conviction that the body found was indeed Cunanan's. Miami TV broadcasts that night revealed a stark contrast between the cautious statements made by the police chief at an 11 p.m. press conference and the forthright comments delivered by Gelber, who openly contradicted the official's hesitance. Gelber admitted to the press that he was reasonably sure it was Cunanan's body, and by sharing this information with various media platforms, he played a key role in the public identification of Andrew Cunanan. The manhunt that had captivated a nation was finally over. Andrew Cunanan, the chameleon who had lived multiple lives and taken multiple others, had written his own final chapter. What happens after the cameras stop rolling? At Scoob, we go beyond the breaking news and dig into the stories left behind, the secrets, silence, and strange truths surrounding the world's most talked about celebrity crimes. Powered by AI and driven by curiosity, Scoob uncovers the hidden layers behind infamous murders and scandals involving public figures. Whether it's forgotten clues, overlooked motives, or the voices no one listened to, Scoob brings depth and clarity to the cases that shook the world. Join over 50,000 true crime fans who tune in not just for the what, but the why and the how. Download Scoob now on the App Store or Google Play, and make sure to follow and subscribe to Spotlight Murders, your go-to source for revealing new episodes about the untold sides of celebrity lives and deaths. Coming back to the Gianni Versace murder case, in December 1997, authorities issued their final report, characterizing the shooting of Gianni Versace as the final unhinged act of a man unraveling. The investigation found no substantial ties to organized crime, no grand conspiracy, no complex motive beyond the deteriorating mental state of a killer whose carefully constructed false identities had finally collapsed. In January 1998, Miami Beach officials ordered the demolition of the houseboat where Cunanan had taken his own life, eager to eliminate what had become a grim spectacle for morbidly curious onlookers. Despite over 1,000 interviews and exhaustive investigation, many questions remained unanswered. Did Versace and Cunanan ever actually meet? What drove a young man capable of such charm and intelligence to become one of America's most notorious serial killers? Could this tragedy have been prevented if authorities had acted more swiftly during their manhunt? The Versace family's swift cremation of Gianni's body and their successful fight to keep autopsy results confidential ensured that some secrets would remain buried forever. The HIV theories, the mafia connections, the complex web of relationships, all became footnotes in a story that defied simple explanation. What we're left with is a tale that reveals the dangerous intersection of fame, obsession, and mental illness. Andrew Cunanan's transformation from struggling student to sophisticated socialite to cold-blooded killer represents a descent into madness that claimed 5 lives and shattered countless others. Gianni Versace's legacy endures in the fashion world he helped revolutionize, but his story serves as a reminder of how quickly a life can be cut short by senseless violence. The morning walk that ended in tragedy was just that, a random moment when the paths of genius and madness intersected on the steps of an Ocean Drive mansion. The case officially closed with Cunanan's suicide, but the questions it raised about celebrity, security, and the nature of evil continue to resonate today. In a world where fame can make anyone a target, the murder of Gianni Versace remains a cautionary tale about the price of living in the public eye. And we're reminded that sometimes the most compelling true crime stories are the ones where the truth remains just out of reach, leaving us to wonder what really happened on that summer morning in Miami Beach. Thank you for joining me for this deep dive into the Versace murder case. Until next time, stay safe and remember, truth is often stranger than fiction.